Let's call him Jake. Here's what you need to know about Jake and me. We've been together since we were 15. We got engaged when we were 18, right before we headed off to different colleges. By the time we were both 20, our wedding was just 8 months away. Jake was my dad's best friend. They were always hunting and fishing together, and it was really nice to see them share so many moments like that. My dad had gone through a divorce before meeting my mom. After they married, things fell apart when his wife ran off with someone else just 6 months later. One day, we had a serious conversation about my future. We'd been together long enough that our families expected we'd stay together forever. "Do you love him?" my dad asked me. He needed to know I was with Jake because I truly loved him, not just because it was what everyone expected. He didn't want me to go through the same heartbreak he had before meeting my mom. "If you married the wrong person, it could ruin your life," he warned. "Yes, I love him more than anything," I replied without a doubt. I was sure of it. Jake and I were made for each other. We were so excited to start living on our own and finally make our own decisions. We both hated feeling like kids. We wished we were older. I couldn't wait to move in with him and begin the life we had always dreamed of. I'd saved up so much money for our future together. I got my first job at 16 and saved nearly every penny. I even volunteered at the local animal rescue, and they held my favorite dog for months so we could adopt him by the end of the year. It was the weekend before finals. I was in the second to last semester of my 4-year degree, and it was also the weekend Jake graduated. That Saturday, he received his diploma for his 2-year degree. Watching him walk across that stage in his cap and gown felt surreal. He had done it. One of us had made it across the finish line, and he was even starting his new job the following Monday. It felt like everything was falling into place. Our plan was to move to Bluefield together, but I'd stay with my parents on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I had arranged my classes so I'd only have to spend 3 nights away from him each week. Since I had just one more semester, it seemed doable until I graduated. But things started to shift. Jake got upset about everything. Since we were about to move in together, I knew I had to stand up for myself more, not let him push me around. I was slowly learning to be stronger. That night, we were lying in bed. We were talking about how to arrange our new apartment, but Jake was quiet and seemed distant. So I asked, "What's wrong?" He stared ahead, then said, "I don't think I'm happy anymore." It took me a moment to process what he had just said. "What? What's going on? What's wrong?" His responses were vague. "I don't know. I've just felt this way for a while. I don't know what it is." I asked if it was because of his new job, or maybe he was nervous about moving far from our families. I even asked if it had to do with leaving behind his friends now that he was done with school. I asked if maybe there was someone else he was interested in. But every time, he just said, "No." Then I asked the dreaded question, "Is it me?" He paused before answering, "I don't know." My heart sank. We were supposed to be getting married in 8 months, and it felt like everything was suddenly falling apart. I started asking the usual questions I always ask when things go wrong. What did I do? Did I do something today? But he couldn't give me an answer. Did I say something he didn't like? "Well, lately, yeah. You've been doing that a lot." That seemed to be his go-to response. He said I wasn't as supportive of him as I used to be and that I'd been kind of harsh lately. So, I spent the next few hours telling him how much I loved him. "There's no one I love or respect more than you. I'm so sorry if I made you feel unworthy in any way. What do I need to change? What do you need me to do to make you happy again? I mean, I still want to marry you." I was a mess. I didn't know what I was doing wrong, and Jake wouldn't tell me how to fix it. I was lost. He assured me that he wasn't sure enough to make any decisions about ending our engagement, and that I had nothing to worry about. Needless to say, I didn't take that reassurance well. It was crushing. On Sunday morning, I called him because I just needed to hear his voice. I woke him up with the call, and I wasn't sure what to say. When I finally had him on the phone, he was irritated. He told me to speak up and try to breathe because he couldn't understand a word I was saying. "Okay, sorry," I muttered. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" he asked. "No. Of course I'm not okay after what happened last night." He stayed silent, so I said, "I need to know you're okay. I need to know that there's nothing I should be worrying about." He let out a heavy sigh. "Should I be worried?" I asked, desperate for some kind of answer. With a groan, he said, "I don't know." That was it. I collapsed onto my bed, crying harder than I ever had before. I grabbed my pillow, screamed into it, and punched it out of frustration. I picked up the phone, and he asked if I wanted him to stop by before heading to Bluefield. I told him yes, hoping he'd come and hold me tighter than ever, apologize, and assure me that everything was fine. I needed to hear him say that he loved me. I'd never been more terrified in my life. When he finally arrived, we went to my room. We sat on the bed, and he just stared at me. His face was unreadable, like he was thinking, "I'm here, but what do you want me to do?" I felt so distant from him in that moment. He looked like a stranger, someone who barely cared, someone I didn't recognize. The way he looked at me made the tears come even harder. He asked, with irritation, "What will it take to make this better?" That set me off. He acted like he had no clue what was wrong. I snapped back, "Well, obviously, I'd feel a lot better if you'd stop acting like you don't love me anymore and tell me that I don't have to worry." He looked shocked. "I'm not promising you anything." I felt like the world was closing in on me. I couldn't breathe. I just lay down on the bed, too exhausted to move. He stayed seated, probably scrolling through his phone while I sobbed beside him. Eventually, he said he was ready to leave. Normally, I'd hug him, kiss him, and send him off, but after making me cry like this, I didn't want to face anyone just yet. I didn't want my parents to think he'd upset me, so I told him to just go. "Well, do I at least get a kiss?" he asked. I forced myself up, kissed him quickly, and then asked, "What do I tell your mom if she wants to go wedding dress shopping? What am I supposed to say when people see me like this?" He shrugged. "I don't know. I love you. I love you too," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I was frustrated. He had completely avoided answering my questions, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. When he says, "I love you," I always have to say it back, or he gets upset. I was just too drained from trying to stop him and demand a real answer. I stayed in my room and cried for hours more. I was furious with him for dropping this bomb right before finals week. Why couldn't he have waited until next weekend to talk about this? At least then I could focus on school. But I also felt guilty for being mad. He must have been really struggling to bring this up now, of all times. I hated myself for snapping at him when he asked how he could make things better. That was actually thoughtful of him, and all I did was lash out. Why couldn't I just make him happy? Maybe if I had done better, this never would have happened. I told myself I had to be strong for him. I needed to get through this and show him that I could handle the conflict I had caused. I had to be his source of peace, the one who would help him through this. He texted me when he got to his hotel in Bluefield. I couldn't help but ask, "Do you want me to give you some space for a while?" I could sense the frustration in his reply. "Yeah, I just need some time to figure out what I want." "Okay, I love you so much. I'm here when you're ready to talk," I said, trying to reassure him. It killed me not knowing when he'd text back. But deep down, I knew that giving him space was the right thing to do, even if it felt like a punch to the gut. Every breath felt heavy, and my face felt pale. I couldn't stop checking my phone, hoping for a message from him. I just wanted him to call, to tell me he loved me, to tell me everything was going to be okay. I knew I couldn't keep this from my parents, so I went to my mom and explained the situation. I told her that he was confused and scared about all the changes happening in his life. He just graduated, was moving across the state, and was about to start a new job. I told her I'd misinterpreted his words, that I thought he was unsure about us, and I overreacted. She hugged me and reassured me that everything would work out, that we'd both be okay in the end. The rest of the day, I stayed away from everyone. I was crying on and off, completely wrecked. I will never forget how it felt. Each hour dragged on like an eternity. My heartbeat was so loud in my chest it drowned out everything else, and my ears rang. I couldn't focus, couldn't breathe right. It felt like my chest and neck were being squeezed by something sharp, and every breath I took hurt more. I had to hold on to the wall just to stand because my body was trembling so badly. The pain was so intense I thought it might swallow me whole. It felt like years, the longest time I'd ever experienced. That simple Sunday and Monday stretched out further than the whole 20 years of my life. It suddenly made sense how someone could feel so overwhelmed by pain that they'd take their own life. I was scared that I was losing the battle with my own emotions. How much longer could I go on like this? I had all 3 of my finals that Monday. I went to the library for some last-minute studying, but changing the environment didn't help at all. I was holding my chest, struggling to breathe. I cried the entire day. I was wheezing, each breath coming out loud and ragged. I noticed people looking at me, probably wondering what was wrong. I tried to hide the fact that I was gasping for air, hoping no one would see. Some people asked if I was okay, and I lied and said I was fine, even though they could see the signs. I was mortified by the stares. It became so obvious that I wasn't okay. The pain, the guilt, the fear, it had completely consumed me, and there was no pretending. After I bombed my last final, I shakily made my way to my car. The walk there, though short, felt like a marathon. When I finally got to the car, I had to catch my breath before I could drive, sitting there in tears for a few more minutes. As I drove home, my mind was racing. He was the one who made me feel this way. But he was also the only one who could make me feel better. His words, his actions, they had so much power over me, and he knew it. I hated how much control he had over me. The thought of marrying him now, of being with him forever, was suddenly terrifying. I felt guilty for still being angry at him. He told me not to worry, and I should just trust that it would all work out. I needed to let go of my feelings. I was being dramatic, right? But deep down, I screamed at myself, "You can't live like this." The pain was so unbearable that it felt like I might break. Marrying him might mean enduring this kind of pain for the rest of my life. Even if he called me and said, "I still love you, and I still want to marry you," I knew it wouldn't fix anything. What if he starts to doubt us again? What if one day he says something, and I end up back where I am now, shattered? I knew I could never forgive him for making me feel so small and worthless. Could I really go through with this? But I didn't let myself go too deep into those thoughts. I kept pulling myself back. I had to remind myself that I loved him, and he loved me, and this was just a phase. It's only been 2 days, right? Has it really only been 2 days? It feels like forever. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just being too hard on myself. I should be focusing on comforting him, not wallowing in my own hurt. I was being weak. What good am I if I can't help him through this? Then I got a text from him asking if we could talk on the phone. I was so relieved to hear from him, but also terrified. I didn't know how much more I could handle. Would he hurt me again? I didn't know if I could survive another blow to my heart. Here's how the phone call went, to the best of my memory. Hey, hon! I got a place, it's a house. Okay. A pause. It doesn't allow dogs. Okay. Another pause. My heart was sinking. I can't do this anymore. Pause. Did I just hear that right? What do I even say? Wow. I don't know how long the pause lasted. Could have been a few seconds or several minutes. I felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. I couldn't feel my body anymore. I stared at his senior pictures of us on my parents' wall. Is this really the end? My mind flashed to our dog, his family, my mom, dad, brother, and sister. I felt my face wet with tears, and I wiped them away. It was the millionth time I'd wiped my face in the last 2 days, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. How could you do this? You ruined my life! I didn't know what else to do, so I hung up, then collapsed on the couch, screaming. I wasn't crying anymore, I was screaming. Screaming until I couldn't anymore, then gasping for deep breaths. I noticed almost immediately that it felt easier to breathe. It was like my lungs and throat weren't being squeezed anymore. It was as though John had stopped strangling me. I felt hunger for the first time in what felt like forever. When had I last eaten? More than a day ago. I stumbled into the kitchen and grabbed some fruit and pretzels. Slowly, I could feel my strength returning, like I was being revived after dying. Then, he texted me. He said we still needed to get our things back. He had my TV at his grandma's cabin and some of my nicer clothes. I had his parents' wheelbarrow and other farm equipment at my house. I told him to leave me alone, that I'd talk to his mom about it. I figured he wasn't planning on telling her about what had happened tonight. I was home alone. My parents were out grocery shopping together. I called my mom, asked her to come home. Can you come home? John just broke up with me. Okay, we'll leave now. I could tell she didn't know how to respond. What was she supposed to say? My eyes were so heavy and hurt from crying. I turned off the living room light, then all the lights in the house, and just lay there in the dark, waiting for my parents to come home. My mom walked in through the front door and turned on the light. She didn't see me on the couch at first. She panicked and started walking through the house, turning on lights in the other rooms. I called out, "I'm here on the couch." She sat down beside me and hugged me tightly. My dad walked in with one bag of groceries they had managed to get before I called them. He stood there for a moment, watching us, then walked to his room, probably thinking I wanted privacy with my mom. I could feel my heart ache for him. I felt like I had let him down. I'm so mad at him. I know. I am too. She didn't know what else to say. What could she say? What am I supposed to do now? I whispered. His family isn't my family anymore. I don't understand what happened. I don't even know what I did wrong. I can't go on the band trip to Albuquerque in a few days. She told me no, that I needed to go on the trip. Then she asked if I thought he had cheated on me. I told her no. As angry as I was at him, I knew he would never cheat. I took a shower and went to bed, my mind racing. Maybe he finally realized I wasn't a good girlfriend, fiancée, or wife. It took him 5 years, 4 months, and 8 days to figure it out. He probably stayed with me out of pity, knowing no one else would want me. He didn't want me to be alone, but he didn't love me enough to marry me. I guess I should be grateful he stayed with me through high school and college. That night, I slept the deepest I had in a long time, rested but still utterly depressed. When I woke up, I took off my engagement ring and began packing up his things. I also started preparing for my band trip to Albuquerque. I remember going out with my mom that day. She told me I was handling everything surprisingly well. I told her it was because I hadn't fully processed everything yet. She asked if I felt suicidal. I told her no, that it wasn't an option for me. I was feeling better than before, though I didn't clarify what I meant. I was better than before John had broken up with me, but I didn't want to burden her with the truth. I couldn't believe I had seriously considered ending my life just yesterday. How could feelings be so overwhelming? How much longer would it have taken before it affected my actions? What if John hadn't called me last night? Would I still be here? My parents were both furious about the whole situation, especially with John. My dad started combing through every woman on his Facebook friends list. I didn't understand why. I knew he was wasting his time. It was my fault, after all. They should be mad at me, not him. I should have kept him happy. I had one job, and I blew it. Now my whole family had to suffer because of me. I was so ashamed. I went on the Albuquerque trip. John's friend, who was going to be his best man, was also on the trip. I avoided him the whole time because I didn't want to be the one to break the news. I felt numb. I didn't interact with anyone much during the trip. It was the last marching band event I would ever attend. After all the years of marching in high school and college, this was it. John didn't like my high school friends, so I distanced myself from them. I had done the same in college, keeping my distance from everyone because it was easier to keep him happy that way. Now, my life felt empty, and I blamed myself. I kept thinking about reaching out to him, apologizing for not being the person he needed and thanking him for loving me anyway. I was still trying to figure out where it all went wrong. I must be so stupid. No wonder he didn't want to marry me. I couldn't even figure out when I'd messed up. Maybe I lied to my mom when I told her I wasn't suicidal. My mom picked me up after the trip. She told me they didn't know all the details, but she and my dad had found out John had been with someone else. She was afraid of how I'd take it. I was shocked, but I didn't feel the pain I expected. In fact, it was the biggest relief I'd ever felt. I didn't have to blame myself anymore. Turns out, this wasn't all on me, it was on him too. A huge weight lifted off my chest, but it was quickly replaced with anger. He cheated on me. He made me think it was my fault he was leaving, but the truth was, he saw more potential in someone else. How could he do that to me? My mom and dad asked me who I thought it could be. I told them I wasn't sure. John had a lot of female friends, but most of them were in relationships. I mentioned that he told me several months ago that a junior firefighter girl had a crush on him. He also mentioned, on our way home from his graduation, that he'd had a dream about him and her responding to a structure fire together. I thought it was impossible. After all, a junior firefighter would still be in high school. My parents encouraged me to buy myself a brand new car. I was driving a 1998 Toyota Camry, and they took me to different dealerships, while I lay in the back seat. They were trying so hard to lift my spirits, and it hurt to see how worried they were about me. I traded my Camry in for a brand new 2018 Jeep Compass. It was the first time I'd ever splurged on something for myself. My cousin was going through a divorce at the same time. She had been with her husband as long as I had been with John. Our relationships both ended at the same time, under the same circumstances. So, we went on a beach trip together. It felt good to spoil myself and vent about our problems with someone who understood. When I returned, my dad told me they had discovered who John had been with. It was, indeed, the junior firefighter. Knowing who the other girl was didn't change how I felt. I just thought, good for them, how convenient. I still needed to get in touch with his mom to exchange our things. I asked his mom, "Have you met his new girlfriend?" "No." "He did tell you he was seeing someone else, right?" "No, he promised us he didn't." I sent her some screenshots and said, "I'm sorry, he's lying to you." A few days later, I met his mom to exchange our belongings. I didn't give her the engagement ring back. I asked her, "Are you happy for him?" She replied, "Well, we're happy that he's happy." I could tell she was embarrassed. That's when the fury of betrayal really hit me. I had several meltdowns. I screamed. I threw things across the room. I pulled my hair so hard I felt it coming out in clumps. I was scared of what I was becoming. I felt like a monster. He made sure he was somewhere I couldn't find him before he made that last phone call. He didn't have the guts to do it in person. He was afraid of how I'd react, how my dad would react. He couldn't face anyone. So, he ran and hid. He lied to his parents about being with someone else. He didn't care what they thought of me. He wanted them to believe he left me because I made him miserable, like he was better off alone. Meanwhile, I lied to my parents to protect him. I wanted them to think highly of him, just like I once did. He lied to his parents to protect himself. He wanted everyone to blame me, and I lied for him. How long had he been seeing her? Why did he put me through this? He knew I was strong enough to put on a brave face when I needed to, but why did he push me to the edge like that? Why did he make me swallow every bit of pride I had and beg for him when his mind was already made up? Did he get some sick pleasure out of seeing me cry and beg? Did it feel good when he kicked me while I was down? Why couldn't he just tell me he cheated and end our engagement with some dignity instead of torturing me, hoping I'd snap and break up with him? If the roles were reversed, I would have told him the truth. I would have told him he deserved better than to stay with a cheater, even if that cheater was me. Why couldn't he have done it that way? Did you want me to kill myself? Were you really okay with the idea of your fiancée ending her life just to make things easier for yourself? What did my family ever do to you? How could you be okay with destroying me and putting everyone I love through that pain? Were you trying to provoke me when you said you didn't think you were happy anymore? Were you hoping I'd break up with you that night? Did you get nervous when I begged you to stay? You must have broken it off because you were afraid of being exposed, or maybe even worse. Maybe you were worried I'd kill myself after you left. You couldn't risk me dying once everyone knew you'd abandoned me. You probably thought, "Oh no, it's not working. The best thing I can do now is try to let her down easy." You wanted me to end it all so you could be the grieving boyfriend. You'd rather I be dead so you'd have no enemies. You must have loved the idea of my whole family comforting you and apologizing for my selfish actions. You knew they'd still love you and treat you like family. They'd probably encourage you to move on and find someone new. That way, you could act like your relationship with her started soon after my family buried me. How convenient for you. This level of selfishness is something I never imagined could exist. Maybe I'm just crazy, blowing it out of proportion. But you can't tell me your intentions were anything but cruel. You saw how badly I was hurting. You saw my lifeless face. You knew I was feeling suicidal. Yet you did nothing. How could you say you loved me? You were killing me. I was dying, and you saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. I fought for you. I protected you. I did everything I could to make you happy. Your happiness meant more to me than anything. I wanted your happiness more than my own. I reinvented myself time and time again, hoping that at least one version of me would be the one to make you feel complete. And all you did was tear it all apart and spit it in my face while I bled out because of you. You knew I could handle it. You knew I was strong. You knew how much I wanted you to be happy. That's why you did it. You knew I wouldn't make a scene. You knew I wouldn't tell the world about your dirty little secret. You knew I would keep it to myself. You knew I wouldn't seek revenge, because, in the end, I just wanted you to be happy. You knew I would let go and wish you the best because when I love someone, I give them everything I have. And you still had all of me. I can't believe he didn't care about how this would tear me apart. I gave him the best years of my life. I started moving on with my life. I began my last semester at school. I picked up a job at Tutors. But I was lonely. I had no one to talk to. I had never felt so isolated. I was caught up in a whirlwind of emotions: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, flipping between them faster than I could keep track. I was trying to remember what had happened over the past few months, but everything felt foggy, like a bad accident had wiped my memory. I was still trying to process it all. At school, guys started talking to me more. They were really friendly, trying to get to know me. At first, I was confused. But then I realized, it had to be because I wasn't wearing my engagement ring anymore. Around the same time, guys from my area started reaching out on Facebook, asking if I was single. At first, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to date. Why were they even interested in me? Don't they realize I'm a freak? Why do you think I keep to myself? Why do you think I have no friends? No one wants me. You shouldn't want me either. After making sure they weren't just looking for a hookup, I agreed to go out for coffee or dinner with a few of them. I told them I wasn't ready for anything serious, that I'd just gotten out of a relationship. I had a lot of emotional baggage I wasn't ready to unload on anyone. But it felt good to talk to someone about everything I'd been through over the past few months. The problem was, I think I overwhelmed several of them with it all. I never heard from most of them again. I didn't know what my standards were. I didn't know what I was looking for in a partner. I just needed to stay single for a while, to figure myself out and get emotionally stable. I didn't even know how to date. It was mid-March now, about 3 months later. I started enjoying spending my money on whatever I wanted. My sister and I began planning a 2-week road trip as a graduation present to myself. I had a date with a guy named Mason, who had gone to Hurricane High School and graduated in 2013, 2 years before me. He was a big gamer, and we bonded over all the games we played. He knew exactly what I was talking about, and he made me blush, smile, and laugh so much. He drove an orange Camaro, and I couldn't wait to go for a ride in it. He picked me up, and we went to dinner. I told him everything that had happened in the past 3 months. When I finished, he said it all sounded so rough, and he was really sorry for everything I'd been through. He didn't seem put off by the fact that I wasn't over it. He still seemed just as interested in me. We spent hours driving down back roads after dinner, just talking. He was so fun to talk to. He had a playlist made just for us, pop/punk, boy bands, all songs about special girls and their lives. He made me smile so much, and I felt so comfortable with him. When he took me back to my car after the date, I really didn't want to leave. I wanted to see him again. "Will I see you again?" I asked. He smiled and said, "We'll see." I got into my car and drove home, but I started overthinking what he said. "We'll see," instead of, "Yes, I want to see you again." He didn't message me that night. The next morning, I went to work. He still hadn't messaged me. I started tearing up while cleaning the dining room. I scared him off. He probably couldn't wait to get me back to my car so he could be done with me. I'm so stupid. I tried to convince myself that it was okay. I didn't really like him that much anyway. Then, he messaged me, telling me good morning. I was so relieved. I told him I was afraid he wouldn't talk to me anymore. "You don't have to worry about that with me," he said. Then he asked if I wanted to go out again. I was so happy. He thought I was amazing. He thought every little thing about me was fascinating and perfect. When he drove, he always glanced at me and said, "I'm sorry, it's hard to keep my eyes off you. I can't believe I have a girl as pretty as you in my car. I'm glad I found a girl who's a nerd like me." That made me think. Yeah, I guess I am a nerd. John never cared about any of the games I played. He just saw it as something that took my attention away from him. The fact that I didn't have to be ashamed about gaming around Mason had me overjoyed. I could embrace it. I could be proud of it. He gave me butterflies like crazy. Am I falling in love again? Or am I just confused? After a few more dates, he hugged me, and I snuck in a kiss. "I was actually about to ask if I could kiss you," he said, "but I guess you just answered my question. It's April now." One day, while we were out together, Mason asked if I thought it was a good idea to finally make our relationship official. I froze. I didn't say anything at first. It had only been about 4 months since John left me. It had been traumatic, and it still kept me up at night. I wasn't sure if I was ready. "So, no?" he asked, a little unsure. "No. I'm not saying no," I quickly corrected. "I just don't think I'm ready yet." I told him I wanted to be single while I went on my road trip with my sister. We'd planned the trip for the end of May, and what I didn't tell him was that I didn't want to be preoccupied with keeping someone else happy while I was trying to focus on having fun. The whole point of the road trip was to give me a sense of freedom. He didn't mind at all. He told me to take my time and do whatever was best for me. "I hope I can still kiss you, though," he added, flashing me a smile. This man really adores me. That night, I spent a long time thinking about us. I knew I still wasn't fully over everything that had happened in December. I thought about how broken I was, how much pain I'd endured. Mason had done nothing but bring me joy, comfort, and healing. He still wanted to hold my hand, kiss me, and show me off to his friends, even though I told him I wasn't ready to be his girlfriend, yet. It didn't feel fair to Mason. I shouldn't be using someone like this. I shouldn't make him wait for me. What if I was leading him on, only to decide later that I didn't want to be with him? I couldn't hurt someone who had been nothing but kind and patient with me. I wanted what was best for him. Should I let him go? No, I couldn't. No one had ever made me this happy. But I couldn't string him along when I couldn't promise him anything. I felt selfish, and I didn't know what to do. I really think I love him. Please stay. Please don't go. We went on several more dates, and he never brought up making things official again. He really cared about me and wanted me to do whatever felt right. It was such a selfless thing that I'd never thought someone would do for me. I had spent so long believing I didn't deserve to be loved or cared for. But here he was, proving me wrong. Am I really worthy of all this love and affection he's giving me, so freely? One day, he got upset with me during a conversation when I started getting insecure. Why do you always put yourself down? How could someone like you hate yourself so much? You need to stop. It's human to make mistakes. No one is perfect. But you should know how smart and beautiful you are. I need you to know that. You need to take me seriously when I compliment you. I'm not just trying to flatter you, I mean everything I say. I froze. I didn't know how to respond to that. When someone reprimands you, you're supposed to feel ashamed, but here he was, reprimanding me for the opposite. It took me a moment to process his words before I could respond. You're right. Thank you. That's better, he said, smiling. I had been so afraid of disappointing him for the first time. I was afraid he'd see I'm not perfect, get disgusted, and never speak to me again. But nothing could have prepared me for that moment. He didn't just see me as the girl of his dreams, he saw me as a person, flaws and all. He wasn't just showering me with affection because he was blindly in love, he was falling for me, and he could see me clearly. When we gamed together, he'd praise every little thing I did. I'm just walking around. You're so good at this game. I'd solve a puzzle. You're so smart. I'd kill an enemy. That was so hot. Stop it. I'm not even that far into the game. I laughed. No, you're good at this and need to know it, he insisted. Mason's friends liked me too, and they tell me how lucky he was to have me. I've never seen Mason so happy. I'm so happy he found someone like you. I told my mom how much he loved everything about me. That's so amazing. You deserve someone who treats you like a princess. I'm so glad you found him. You deserve so much happiness. I never thought I'd hear someone say I deserve this. We loved seeing each other smile. It was so rewarding, making each other happy. We didn't stop trying to make it happen every day. It felt like we were high on love. I felt like I could fly. And then, just like that, I didn't care about staying single on my road trip. I didn't care about my past. I didn't care about the possibility of hurting him because I never wanted to. I just wanted Mason. It's been long enough. This is real. On April 12, 2018, I told Mason I'd like to be his girlfriend. In November 2019, we bought our first home together. On October 2, 2021, we got married. On June 25, 2024, our son, Rowan, was born. I've never been happier in my life. And it's not because I found a better man, but because I've learned to love myself, thanks to Mason. I believe now. I believe that I'm worth it. I believe that I'm important. I believe I deserve to be loved, respected, and to have peace and happiness. I'm smart. I have endless potential. My feelings matter. I recognize that I'm compassionate and considerate of everyone I love. I am a good sister, a good daughter, and a good person. I also think I believe in soulmates now. I'm ashamed of how low I thought of myself back then. I thought I was a bad person. I truly believed I was one of the worst people to ever exist. I thought everyone around me was better. Everyone else was smarter, friendlier, and more capable than I would ever be. I didn't think I deserved anything. I'm scared of people now. After everything I've been through, I've learned the hard way that I am a good person in a world that can be harsh. Now when I meet someone new, I wonder, are you a monster too? Are you going to stab me in the back? Are you only being nice because you want something from me? What do you want from me? I'm afraid of getting too comfortable with people. I see the best in people, and sometimes, that's not a good thing. I still struggle with my confidence. Am I doing the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Did I make it awkward? Did I offend them? My heart still aches sometimes. I still see what I went through as a traumatic accident, and the part of me that was injured never fully healed. It's like I go through occasional bursts of pain, like I'm still stuck in the aftermath. Whenever I have disagreements with colleagues, feel disrespected by clients, or argue with family, it cuts deeper now. I can't quite grasp that my life is real. Even though I have my own house, am married, and have a son, I'm still trying to process that this is my life and these events are truly happening. I can't believe we're homeowners. I can't believe we're married. I can't believe I'm pregnant. I can't believe I'm a mother. I don't say these things because they're unbelievable. I say them because they don't feel real. Since I heard the words, I don't know if I'm happy anymore, something shifted in me. It's like I'm frozen in that moment, thinking, did I hear that right? Am I processing this right? John permanently changed me. And that accident left scars that I'll carry forever. Mason will never know who I was before all of that happened. It doesn't feel fair that Mason only gets the version of me that's broken. He deserves the old me, the girl who wasn't afraid of the world, who didn't go through regular bouts of depression, and wasn't so disconnected from reality. I'll never fully get over it. I was a child when I met John, naive and vulnerable, with a huge heart. I was the perfect victim for a narcissist. I don't wonder about what could have been with John. I wonder what could have been if I had never met him. What if I had more friends? What if I had experienced falling in love 100 times, instead of just once? I'll never stop wondering how much life I didn't get to live because of him. Those were my teenage years, and I'll never get them back. I'll never stop feeling stupid for staying with him when he didn't deserve me. I was in control of my life, but I stayed by his side while he bullied me, degraded me, and ridiculed me every chance he got. Yes, he cheated on me. That's on him. But I loved him unconditionally. I tolerated him unconditionally. And that will always be on me.